Hello, my name's Salik. Welcome to Show Me Your Shelfie. Today, I'm super excited to be talking about the Women's Prize. First, they announce a long list that's 16 books. Then they drop it down to a short list that's 6 books. And then at the very end, of course, they announce the year's winner. If you want to know more about which books are eligible, there's length eligibility and publishing date eligibilities. There's a couple other videos that really go over it. Ben Reads Good does a great job of kind of breaking it down. There's a short video from the Women's Prize website where all the judges introduce themselves, and that's a lot of fun too. That's linked below. But today I'm going to be participating in the speculations. I have not read all of these books, but I have scrubbed the different booktubers. I've watched their predictions. I've read a couple reviews myself, and I've been keeping up with the New York Times Book Review, along with, like I said in my last video, Book Hub and Lit Hub. Here's my prediction of 16 books that I think might show up on the Women's Prize, and I will be very satisfied if I can get 4. So if I get 4 right, I'll consider this a win. The first book is Absolution by National Book Award winning author Alice McDermott. This book takes place in Saigon, and it is centered around a couple of American women who have followed their husbands over during the Vietnam War. And it, talks about the relationships that they build, and kind of, I think it flashes forward to their reflections of what their participation was. This sounds very interesting, and it's super well reviewed. The second book is Enter Ghost by Isabella Hammond. The main character is an actress, and this book is about her returning home to Palestine after spending 20 years in the theater in England, and kind of her connection to the place and what she remembers from 20 years ago, and then her disconnections, what pieces have kind of moved on. The third book I think might make the list is Hello Beautiful. This was a mega massive Oprah Winfrey smash hit. It was selected for an Oprah Winfrey Book Club book, and it's gotten a lot of rave reviews. It's written by Ann Napolitano, and it's inspired by Little Women, but it is not a retelling. I actually read this one. It takes place mostly in Chicago, and it's set during the 80s. And there are these 4 sisters, and the story is about their kind of coming of age and coming together. I have some questions for you. It's a murder mystery, and it reminded me a lot of the Serial podcast. So if you've heard the Serial podcast and you liked it, this is a novel form. It's dealing with some pretty heavy themes for a murder mystery, but it's still a murder mystery, which makes it pretty much a good page turner. This was written by Rebecca Makkai, a Pulitzer finalist for The Great Believers. Number 5 is Julia by Sandra Newman. This is a retelling of George Orwell's 1984 from the perspective of Winston's lover, Julia. This book has been on every single booktuber's list. It's on all of the predictions, and it's been getting rave reviews. It's in the mail, on the way to me. I'm looking forward to reading this just because of the hubbub, and I'm expecting absolutely to see this. I'll be surprised if I get this one wrong. If I get this one wrong, it means we're all getting it wrong. Number 6 is Let Us Descend by Jasmine Ward. She is a literary juggernaut, and she's been called the heir apparent to Toni Morrison. This story is about a young girl who starts off in the rice fields of North Carolina, travels down through the slave trade to New Orleans, and then ends up on a sugar plantation in Louisiana. Loot is a historical novel that takes place in the 17th century, and it's about a young boy who is commissioned by a sultan to create a life-size animated tiger. This is based on a true story, and there really is a Tippy tiger in a museum in England that you can go and check out. It plays music and it bites a British soldier's neck. I recommend Googling that because it's pretty entertaining to see. This book was nominated for a National Book Award, and I hope to see it on the women's long list. Poor Dear by Claire Oshetsky is a story about a very young girl who witnesses the tragic death of her friend, and she's kind of dealing with the tragedy, and in dealing with the tragedy, she is visited by a talking donkey. I am a fan of donkeys. I had donkeys at my wedding. I love donkeys. And so if there's magical realism is a plus, and then donkey is plus plus. So I hope this is one that I don't think anyone else has mentioned. I don't know if this will be on there, but I'm hoping it will. And it's like a wild card. I think people are calling it wild card. So this is Salik's wild card guess. Speaking of donkeys, the next book is Praiseworthy, which is an apocalyptic epic. It's a 600-page tome of a book. It's set in northern Australia during a post-apocalyptic catastrophe, and they have this Aboriginal visionary has this idea that donkeys will bring his family economic prosperity during this crazy time. That just sounds really interesting. The book is written by Alexis Wright, who is a lauded Aboriginal Australian author. And this one, again, I will read it whether it's on or not on the Women's Prize list. At number 10, I have Soldier Sailor by Irish writer Claire Kilroy. And that's just a mouthful. Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy. This is, according to the publishers, a provocative exploration of motherhood that unfolds with the pace of a thriller. So this is also another book that was recognized by almost every booktuber. Everyone who's making these predictions has listed it. I had never even heard about this because I'm American, and this one has just been published in the UK. If you are an American and you want to get a hold of this book, here's the timeline. So let me just break it down for you real fast. The long list is announced on March 5th, and there's going to be a short list which is announced on March 24th. The book, Soldier Sailor, will not be released in the United States until June 4th. And then the winner is announced on June 13th. So if you want to read this before the shortlist, you're going to have to buy a UK version. If you want to read this just before the winner is announced, you've got a 9-day period, baby. You can do it. So this is apparently written kind of stream of consciousness. I don't know. I'm not always wild about that, but everyone's raving, and it sounds like if it reads like a thriller, I'm in. The next book is East Indian by Brenda Cherry. This is a debut novel for her. This story is about the first native of the Indian subcontinent to arrive in Virginia, in colonial Virginia. And it's reading to me a little bit like a Homeric epic. He's going from India to England to Virginia, and there's just a lot of traveling while he's trying to find himself. He wants to get back home. I'm about 3/4 of the way through, and I'm really enjoying this one. The Land of Milk and Honey by C. Pam Zhang is another post-apocalyptic story where food is scarce. And of course, there's the upper echelon of society who has access to more food. And a young chef gets raised up, and literally raised up. So there's a mountain retreat area where the wealthy are living. And she has access for the first time to all these different ingredients, these ingredients that are maybe a little exotic to her, and delightful, certainly, and maybe even to the point where they're erotic. So this is screaming, if you like food porn, you will probably like this book. It's an odd one. I don't think it's on everyone's list. It's another kind of wild card out there. This has gotten so much great reviews. C. Pam Zhang has been previously longlisted for a Booker for How Much of These Hills is Gold, and I think it's a good chance it might show up on the Women's Prize long list. Another book that was listed by everybody, all the booktubers, is The Storm We Made by Vanessa Chan. It's a World War II book that takes place in Malay, and it's about a young woman who gets involved in espionage. Everyone's talking about this book, but it's really kind of received mixed reviews, mixed ratings. I'm not sure, even though I'm not sure whether I should keep it off or put it on. So I was back and forth on this one. I ended up leaving it on because I think the other booktubers are wiser and more experienced than me. But I really will not be surprised if this doesn't make the list, although, it's very popular. And the 14th book on my list is The Vulnerables by Sigrid Nunez. This is some kind of like an odd story where it's really just kind of meditation on needing contact, human or animal. So it's a woman, I think in New York during COVID, and she has a parrot, and she's kind of narrating, I think, her feelings and thoughts. This is another one where you read the back of the book and it's about meditations on loneliness. I don't know that that's like rings for me like, oh, I gotta read this. But it's gotten great reviews and apparently it's very funny. So I hope it makes the list and I will read this book. The Wren by Anne Enright is one of the best reviewed books of 2023. I have rated it. I have done a review. I'll post it below in a link. This book is about a mother-daughter relationship and what their relationship looks like in the shadow of a father/grandfather who is very famous, but also just a massive asshole who abandoned them, in a time of dire need. Fantastic book. Lots and lots of great Irish ranting. I just can't say enough good things about this book. I absolutely expect to see this on the Women's Prize long list. The last book I'm going to mention is Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. This is another COVID story where you have a former actress who is holed up with her 3 adult daughters in a northern Michigan kind of a farm, and she's regaling them with her stories when she was an ingenue. Tom Lake is narrated on audio by Meryl Streep. So this is one that I have it on my list. I'm like 45th in line from the library to receive this, but it's already been on my list. I started at 145th probably, but I'm in line for this one, and I'm so looking forward to hearing Meryl Streep read this one to me. I don't know how many other Americans are doing these long lists, but I can see when I tally it all up that I probably have the most American authors, more than some of my other British booktube reviewers out there, and that's of course because I'm exposed to more of the American authors. But I'm looking forward to reading all those famous British novels. I hope at least some of these American novels make the long list. But of course, the reason that the Women's Prize is so great is because we're introduced to so many new authors or books that we hadn't heard of. Also, I've created a spreadsheet. So if you're nerding out completely about these predictions and which books might get in and all these different books, there's a spreadsheet. I'll link it below if Google will let me. And you're welcome to take a look. I've listed some other of my favorite booktubers and what they predicted, their 16 predictions, or I think one of them predicted less than 16. But also, if you see this and you think, I do not want my books to be listed on your spreadsheet, message me or comment me and I'll remove it so that we don't ruin the surprise. Maybe you want people to watch the full video, which I understand that too. So thank you so much for watching today. And if you are predicting books, or if I missed a book that you think is going to make it on the long list, comment below. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.